The moment you choose yourself, some people will disappear without warning. Not because you became selfish, but because you stopped abandoning yourself. The truth is, when you rise into self-respect, not everyone can follow. And that realization can feel painful before it feels powerful. Choosing yourself is a quiet decision. It happens the day you stop over-explaining, stop chasing validation, and stop sacrificing your peace just to keep others comfortable. At first, nothing seems different. But slowly, the energy around you changes. People who once felt close begin to feel distant, and relationships that survived on your silence start to crack. This is not loss. This is alignment. For a long time, you were conditioned to put others first, often without realizing how deeply this habit shaped your identity. You learned early that being understanding meant staying quiet when something hurt you, and being kind meant adjusting yourself to keep the peace. Slowly, you were taught that your needs were secondary, that your feelings were too much, or that speaking up would make you difficult to love. Over time, this created a pattern where your value felt connected to how useful, patient, or accommodating you could be. You became skilled at reading moods, avoiding conflict, and carrying emotional weight that was never meant to be yours, while your own needs waited in the background. When you finally choose yourself, the discomfort can feel overwhelming. Guilt shows up because your nervous system is used to safety coming from self-sacrifice. Your mind starts questioning you, replaying old beliefs that tell you you are being selfish, cold, or ungrateful. You may feel anxious when you say no, uneasy when you stop explaining yourself, and lonely when you no longer chase people who withdraw. This inner conflict happens because growth removes familiar roles, and familiarity often feels safer than freedom. Even when something was hurting you, it was predictable, and the mind prefers the known pain over the unknown healing. This discomfort is not a signal that you are wrong, it is evidence that you are changing. You are breaking cycles that once helped you survive but now limit who you can become. As you stay present with the unease instead of running back to old patterns, your sense of self begins to strengthen. The guilt slowly loses its power, replaced by clarity and self-trust. You start to understand that kindness without boundaries leads to resentment, and loyalty without self-respect leads to self-loss. What once felt heavy becomes stabilizing, and you realize that choosing yourself is not an act of rejection toward others, but a long overdue act of honesty toward yourself. Not everyone loved you for who you truly were, some people loved the version of you that gave too much without asking for anything in return. They were drawn to your constant availability, your habit of understanding everyone else's flaws, and your ability to forgive without being offered change. Your silence made things easy for them. Your patience protected them from accountability. Over time, your generosity became something they expected, not something they appreciated, and your presence felt valuable to them only as long as it came without boundaries. When you choose yourself, you quietly remove that unlimited access. You stop overextending. You stop rescuing. You stop shrinking your truth to keep the peace. This shift can feel sudden to others, even though it took you a long time to arrive there. People who were comfortable benefiting from your self-neglect may react with confusion, distance, or even resentment. They may say you have changed, but what they really mean is that you no longer serve the role they relied on. When people can no longer benefit from you, their presence often fades. This loss can sting because you may have believed the connection was mutual, but absence reveals truth. Those who valued you only for what you provided cannot remain when you begin to protect yourself. And while that realization can be painful, it is also clarifying. It shows you which relationships were built on convenience and which ones are strong enough to respect your growth. Letting go of these connections is not a failure, it is a correction. You are not becoming cold or selfish. You are becoming honest. As access is removed, space is created for relationships that see you as a whole person, not a resource. And in that space, you learn a powerful lesson: real love does not disappear when boundaries appear. Personal growth has a way of exposing reality that comfort never could. When you begin to grow, you stop operating on autopilot and start acting with intention. This shift quietly reveals who respected you and who only tolerated you as long as you stayed small, agreeable, and easy to manage. While you were overgiving, your growth was invisible to others because it required nothing from them. But the moment you evolve, the truth of each relationship begins to surface. When you stop overgiving, those who depended on your self-neglect feel unsettled. Your boundaries interrupt familiar patterns. They can no longer rely on your silence, your patience, or your willingness to absorb discomfort for the sake of harmony. This change forces them to confront themselves, and not everyone is willing to do that. Instead of adjusting, some choose distance, defensiveness, or blame, because it is easier than growth. Your boundaries become a mirror, and mirrors make people uncomfortable. They reflect imbalance, entitlement, and unspoken expectations. Those who are secure and respectful will adapt and grow with you. Those who benefited from you staying small will resist or disappear. This is not something to fear. It is something to understand. Growth does not ruin relationships. It reveals which ones were real and which ones only survived on your self-sacrifice. Not everyone who leaves your life is the enemy, and understanding this can bring a deep sense of peace. Some people step away not out of malice, jealousy, or ill intent, but because they are unable or unwilling to grow at the pace your life now requires. Your evolution shifts the dynamic, and what once felt familiar to them begins to feel uncomfortable. Your self-respect, clarity, and boundaries highlight changes they may not be ready to make within themselves. When you grow, you become a quiet challenge to those who are still living in patterns they have not questioned. Your progress can remind them of the work they are avoiding, the truths they are not ready to face, or the limits they have placed on themselves. Rather than confronting those feelings, distance feels safer. Stepping back allows them to stay where they are without having to adapt or reflect too deeply. This does not make them bad people, and it does not mean you failed the relationship. It simply means your paths were not meant to remain parallel. Some connections exist for a season, a lesson, or a stage of life. Letting them go with understanding instead of resentment is a sign of maturity. Growth does not require enemies, sometimes it only requires acceptance that not everyone is meant to walk with you into the next version of yourself. Solitude is often an unexpected companion on the path of self-respect. When you choose yourself, old connections that were built on overgiving, silence, or compromise begin to fall away. In their absence, the quiet can feel unsettling at first. You may notice the lack of noise, messages, or familiar distractions, and your mind may interpret that silence as loss. But what you are really experiencing is space. Space that was never available when your energy was constantly pulled in every direction. Loneliness can feel heavy, especially when you are used to being needed. Yet there is a deep difference between being alone and being at peace. Company that drains you, demands self-betrayal, or keeps you anxious is far more damaging than solitude ever could be. In quiet moments, you begin to reconnect with yourself. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotions settle. You start to hear your own voice again, without having to filter it through someone else's expectations. That quiet space is not emptiness, it is preparation. It allows you to rebuild your sense of self without pressure or performance. In solitude, you learn what you value, what you will no longer tolerate, and what kind of connections you truly want. From that place of self-respect, healthier relationships can form, ones that do not require you to overextend or disappear to belong. Solitude strengthens you, so when the right people arrive, you meet them as your full self, not a depleted version trying to be enough. You are not responsible for how others react to your growth, even when their response feels personal. Setting boundaries is often misinterpreted as rejection, and choosing yourself can be seen as selfish by those who benefited from your previous self-neglect. But your limits are not a personal attack, and your self-respect is not arrogance. Your decision to prioritize your well-being is an act of honesty, not betrayal, and it does not require anyone else's approval to be valid. People who respond with anger, guilt-tripping, or withdrawal are often reacting to a shift in power they were used to holding over you. When you stop overextending, stop people-pleasing, and start honoring your own needs, it challenges the dynamic they relied on. Their discomfort is about control, not your worth. Their reaction may sting, but it is a reflection of their own inability to adjust, not a reflection of your choices or character. You are not required to shrink yourself to make others comfortable again. Growth demands courage, and part of that courage is standing firm even when it is met with resistance. You have the right to protect your energy, to honor your truth, and to continue evolving without guilt. The people who truly matter, those who respect and care for you, will support your boundaries and celebrate your growth, rather than fear it. Your responsibility is to yourself, not to the insecurity of others. Pay attention to who stays by your side as you evolve, because their presence speaks volumes about the nature of your connection. The right people will not resent you for setting boundaries, saying no, or prioritizing your needs. They will adjust, not because you ask them to, but because they value you as a whole person. They understand that growth is part of life, and rather than seeing your self-respect as a threat, they see it as a sign of strength and integrity. The right people honor your time and energy. They celebrate your victories, support your decisions, and respect the space you need to thrive. They do not try to manipulate, guilt, or pressure you into reverting to old patterns. Their presence is steady and encouraging, even when the changes you make challenge the way things used to be. These relationships are not transactional, they are rooted in genuine care, shared values, and mutual respect. Everyone else. Those who disappear, complain, or create tension when you grow, was part of your lesson, not your future. Letting them go does not mean you failed or that the connection was worthless. It simply means your life is making space for the people who belong in it as it is now, not as it was. By valuing yourself, you naturally filter out what no longer serves you and make room for relationships that lift, inspire, and honor the person you are becoming. Choosing yourself is never easy because it goes against years of conditioning to put others first. It takes courage to disappoint people you care about instead of constantly sacrificing your own needs to keep them happy. Every no you speak, every boundary you set, feels like stepping into the unknown, and fear naturally rises. Yet, each act of self-respect is a declaration: you are finally prioritizing the person who matters most, you. It also takes strength to walk away without anger, resentment, or the need to justify your choices. Letting go of relationships that no longer serve your growth is rarely simple. There is often a temptation to explain, negotiate, or repair what was never aligned with your journey. True strength, however, lies in the quiet confidence to release what no longer belongs in your life and to do so with grace, knowing that your absence does not diminish your value. Finally, choosing yourself requires wisdom, the understanding that losing people is sometimes the necessary price of becoming who you were meant to be. Not everyone is equipped to walk beside you as you evolve, and that is okay. Growth will naturally filter your connections, leaving behind only those who support and respect the real you. Embracing this truth is liberating, for it allows you to step fully into your life, fully into your purpose, and fully into your own power. Life becomes profoundly lighter when you stop carrying the emotional weight of everyone else. For years, you may have felt responsible for others' feelings, reactions, and happiness, often at the cost of your own well-being. Each compromise, each apology for existing, each moment spent bending to meet someone else's expectations slowly drains your energy. Letting go of this burden does not make you selfish, it restores you. It allows your attention and energy to return to the person who was neglected the most, yourself. As you release this constant responsibility, clarity and focus begin to emerge. You start noticing how much time and energy were wasted chasing approval, smoothing over discomfort, or keeping peace that wasn't yours to hold. The mind quiets, the heart relaxes, and you begin to see your life with a sharper, calmer perspective. Decisions come easier, priorities become clearer, and the world feels less chaotic because you are no longer carrying everyone else's turbulence alongside your own. Peace becomes your standard rather than a luxury. You attract people and experiences that align with your growth instead of draining it. You no longer settle for relationships, jobs, or commitments that demand your constant overextension. Life feels lighter not because circumstances have changed, but because your boundaries and self-respect have shifted the way you interact with the world. In choosing yourself, you realize that liberation is not just a moment. It is a practice, a habit, and ultimately, a way of living fully and consciously. What may feel like an ending, the fading of old relationships, the distance of familiar faces, or the quiet that follows goodbye, is actually the start of something far greater. When people leave your life, it is not always a loss. Often, it is a necessary clearing of space, making room for growth, self-discovery, and experiences that align with the person you are becoming. Every absence, every closure, allows your energy to return to yourself, and with it comes clarity that was previously clouded by compromise and obligation. The people who disappear are not failures or enemies, they are part of the lesson that prepares you for a stronger, more authentic life. Their departure creates space for relationships that respect your boundaries, honor your time, and celebrate your growth. It allows you to redirect your focus from maintaining appearances or meeting others' expectations to investing in your own well-being, dreams, and purpose. In this way, every ending becomes a doorway to something more aligned, more peaceful, and more empowering. You are not alone in this evolution. Each step you take towards self-respect, each boundary you enforce, and each choice to prioritize your own life is a move toward the life you were always meant to live. What feels like absence is really an unfolding, a life that matches your growth, a path that honors your worth, and connections that are real, supportive, and enduring. This is not a loss. It is a beginning. Who disappeared from your life when you chose yourself, and what did that experience teach you about your worth? Choosing yourself may cost you people, but choosing others over yourself will always cost you peace. If you found value in this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, and hit the follow button. Your support doesn't just help the channel, it helps this message reach the people who need it most. Growth and self-respect are journeys, and by engaging with this content, you are joining a community that values honesty, courage, and personal evolution. Take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me about your experiences, your challenges, or the ways you're learning to choose yourself. Every comment matters, and your story could inspire someone else who's struggling to set boundaries or prioritize their own well-being. By liking, subscribing, and sharing, you help us continue creating content that uplifts, motivates, and encourages people to live intentionally. This isn't just about numbers, it's about impact. Together, we can reach those who are ready to grow, to embrace their worth, and to step into the life they deserve. Your support turns these ideas into action, and for that, I am genuinely grateful.